Hello and welcome to this episode of Becoming an Artist, Creative Secrets Revealed. And in this episode, I'm going to be chatting to the wonderful Tim Sandfer, who is an animator, all about his journey, how he discovered the magic of animation at college, and how he worked with some major studios over the years on some really major productions. As always, go to becominganartist.co.uk to download the diagram that I've made of Tim's journey to becoming an animator, exact steps, and all of the other resources from all of the other podcasts as well. And please remember to subscribe on whatever channel you're watching or listening to this on. I really hope you enjoy the episode and keep creating. Okay, so I'm here with the wonderful Tim Sandfer, a heavyweight of the animation industry, who has worked on major animation productions for over 35 years, including Love, Death and Robots, the Netflix 5-time Emmy award-winning animation anthology series, Gorillaz music videos, and even the classic Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which merged live action with animation. He has worked for the Academy Award-winning Passion Pictures, as well as a myriad of other esteemed animation studios. His expertise extends far beyond character animation, and he is known for effortlessly adapting to any style or abstract design briefs, showcasing versatility in the world of animated film production and management. So...
Wow.
What, do you like that?
Wow. That's really good.
You should put that on your website.
I'm going to send it to my mum, that's for sure. Tell you.
There you go.
That was very sweet. Thanks very much.
Oh, no. It's I mean, you have done all those things.
I don't know how you gleaned that from my shabby CVs that I
managed to pick out something. Yeah.
You added superlatives to it, basically.
I did.
It was quite a boring list.
Well, you've got to know how to talk about your work.
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready for it. It's good. At last, 30 whatever years in.
Over 35 years, you told me. So that's like a really long time. So what's been your favorite thing to work on? Can you say?
You'll be amazed. I'll tell you. You'll be amazed because whatever those years and working on all those things.
Yeah.
And then for the past for a long time really, like maybe 6-8 years, my work has been mostly kind of lower level stuff, less out there, less famous stuff.
Yeah.
Because the way I've moved down to the coast and I work from home as much as I possibly can, and to pull those jobs in, you take smaller jobs which you can do more on your own. And more to clients. So I do, and they're nice. I enjoy the jobs, but they're not ones that are going to go on your reel so much and things like that. But this year, I got a call from a studio I'd never heard of to do, and I can't even talk about it really yet because it's not released.
Secret.
I'm under NDA thing, and I can tell you as much that it's like a Netflix documentary, a true crime thing like they do.
Wow.
Kind of like when they have a lot of animated inserts into documentaries.
Yes.
Like the montage effect type thing.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Along that sort of,
oh, fantastic.
Is the prototype, and that was probably the nicest job I've ever worked on in my life.
Really?
It came out of the blue, and it was just like the work was great. It was super creative. They gave me loads of space to do what I wanted to do. They were super, super nice people. The director was just like really on the ball.
Fantastic.
And that was great,
that's the dream, isn't it? You want to be given that freedom, and you want to work, and that's a massive deal. Is to work with nice people,
totally,
and just people who kind of get you and are kind and
people get you. People get you is a huge thing. Because sometimes, especially the surprise with that one was that it was people I'd never met before. I didn't know the job came through me, which never happens. Came through me answering, I think a LinkedIn general throw out any people available, which those rarely ever come off.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, incredible. And it looked too good to be true on there, even Netflix animation going on. Well, there must be something dodgy here. If you've got to advertise it
Yeah.
on the web. You know,
They're going to get you to pay £4,000 and
yeah,
then...
exactly. You just think it's going to be like that, you know. Oh, that's the other thing. It was paid really well. You know, they paid the top dollar for it, so you just don't feel. You feel like you when you treat it like that, you just don't even think you're working. You just get so into it. It's just
and
lovely,
you feel really valued as well, and that makes you do
and
better
it's
work.
and there's just a lot of, you know, a lot of shared information going on between everybody. You know, but yeah, I mean, the great thing is to be given a chunk of something and just be taught and be allowed to go and do it yourself, because the majority of places will want to manage more than that. They'll want to see, they'll want to see what you're doing twice a day, especially if you're working online at home. You'll be getting the thing, can you send this to? And then you find yourself you're just reacting to comments from the studio or the director, or you quite often you're not even dealing with a director on a big job. You're dealing with some in between people who passes messages on, and and you just don't. At the end of it, you don't feel like that's your work, even though you're getting judged on it. You're like, So yeah, that's good.
I don't really think they, and I don't, in that situation, I don't really think they give you the space to create something that you're kind of maybe happy with enough for it to be judged. It's sort of like by the point you get, maybe you get to, you've just kind of started and you need to refine it, or you need to figure it out a bit more, and you're kind of at that stage where it maybe looks a bit, it's not quite right, but they're asking to see it then, and then you're putting changes on it, and you're like, well.
Yeah, I mean, people, especially if it's new, if it's people you've not worked with. I mean, you need. I think everyone needs a bit of time to settle in, and it doesn't really exist these days. I don't think you kind of, you get booked on a job and you hit the ground running, and the first day is like you're producing something that is going to go in the job you're doing. Whereas it with in the past, it's all money related. It's not really people related. It's all budgets. Make things have to happen quicker, and there's no pre-production really for if you're not if you're not directing or a major one of the one or two major people on a job, you're generally coming in and expected to just hit the ground running, and people need a few days to settle in on what they're doing and get to know what's going on and start feeling comfortable and then producing the good work. Quite often, unless competent companies will panic on that first day, and then you'll be so micromanaged that you're just not doing your own work. You're basically just you're working with their designs, you're working with their the tiny bit that they'll give you until you get it right, and it's not your own work, So
it sounds awful.
I was actually gonna put a bell on my desk, and I was gonna ring it every time I knew I was getting too negative, being cynical. Yeah. Can you just do something? Just press a button. Like, stop.
But okay. I'll try and steer it. But what I quite like to talk about is also your journey to where you are today. So you, I guess I want to start from when you were a kid. Were you into animation? Were you into art? No,
not really.
Okay.
I thought about this a lot because, like I said, I've listened to your previous podcasts and really enjoyed them. They sounded great, and people sounded really cool. And so I know your format. Not crazy mad about animation. We're talking about as a kid, maybe up to early teens. I had worked out that I could sort of copy or draw something, like I would copy something from a comic, and I would get great praise from my parents. So but it wasn't
nice.
So it's like I knew the payoff was good.
Yeah.
But I wasn't obsessive at all. There was this would probably happen once a month, this drawing, not like, just some people just draw.
I need some praise right now. Right.
Yeah, and it's more like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, I suppose I could do a picture and I'll just get in the good books.
That's cute.
I wasn't, like, so I've got, I should have got some, but I would just copy things from comics and maybe occasionally, like nature books and things. I think I didn't. And my parents bought me a set of oil paints when I was about 8 or something, and I copied a duck.
Oil paints at 8 is quite hard.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah. I mean, and they're terrible. It's a terrible paint. And I still tried like maybe 3 times in my life, and they're just impossible. I mean, it's just huge admiration for anyone who's got
Yeah, it's
gets
the
the head around
drying
oil
time, I
pegs.
think. It's the drying time.
It's just the mush.
It's too long.
It's just, it's my brown period. Everything's brown. It just all mixes and
everything
goes,
becomes brown.
Yeah, it's just like that.
Yeah.
So from that, I went into obviously as at secondary school and teenager, and the school starts asking people what they're going to do with their career. And at that time, I was doing art at school, but I had to do it in my spare time because it wasn't a scheduled thing. So I did it in my lunchtime in the sort of in this little back office.
So you weren't passionate about it at that point?
I guess I was interested and I wanted to carry it on. And maybe, I can't remember. I suspect my parents might have encouraged it a little bit.
Oh, that's so nice.
But there was an older girl in there. Just the two of us would be there on our lunch times, like once a week. It wasn't full on. But she was obviously quite good and into it, and she was going to be a graphic designer. So when I got asked what I wanted to do for a living, I said, I'll be a graphic designer. So I definitely didn't want to do any academic things. I thought I'd stick with the art.
Yeah.
And that's what I said from then on. I didn't really know what a graphic designer was, I don't think. But I slowly learned, and then I went to, college came along, and again, some people I knew got into art college to do a foundation.
Yeah.
And I thought that sounds good. I'll have a go at that. So I went and got that, and I got on this 2-year foundation course. Still not really, just coasting in education.
And were your parents okay with you pursuing this?
They were great. I mean, they were great, and I could tell they were disappointed. They were
great and disappointed.
Yeah, they've always been super disappointed. I mean, they're great. My parents are great. But they would have. My dad wanted me to be a jockey, or join the army. Literally.
Okay.
So you can imagine. I mean, they weren't the bohemian parents.
You're a jockey.
They weren't the bohemian parents that you used to sit around with dad and discuss the finer points of the sunset. It was nothing like that. It was it was horse racing on TV all Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
Up north to paint the picture better.
Okay. Yeah. Paint the picture.
So am I rambling too much?
No, you're great.
Was that good?
No, it's good.
So I basically just copied someone again and went to do this foundation course. And I got there. I went to York to do that, and I left home to do it. I moved in with some friends, all the friends from school who were going to that, and it was a 2-year foundation. So you were quite young.
You were like 18.
It was after sixth. Yeah, it was 18-year-old. Yeah, straight after sixth form.
So
you
went straight to do art foundation.
Yeah, and I had a great sixth form because I'd applied for that in the first year of 2 years of sixth form. So my second year of sixth form, I'd already got a place in college, so I just failed all my A levels. Didn't do any work for them. Didn't care. I had a brilliant time. It was probably my best year in education, not being educated, because it was quite a fun school by then. At that age, you had quite a lot of freedom, so it's fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went to, and it was a 2-year foundation, so it was quite full on, and you got to sample a bit of everything. It was set up nice, so you did typography, and you did fashion, even 3D design, fine art, photography, and I was still on this graphic design thing. I want to be a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And and that slowly changed a bit to wanting to be an illustrator, probably again influenced by a guy I met there who became a really good friend, and he was, I'll do that. I think it's good. So again, no ideas of my own at all. So in life so far.
Isn't it like a bit like you're like a bit like a magpie? Because I'm a bit like that as well,
totally.
Where you kind of like, oh, that looks fun. Let's do that.
Or maybe not. Yeah, maybe. I think in my case, it was more like I just didn't have the feeling for anything yet, and it was just like it was more like what can I cope with? Because I think I'd sampled the typography, and it was it was old school.
Yeah.
Blocks, putting blocks into a thing and printing them, and which is great now because it's a novelty thing. But when you had to do that as a discipline for a week, it's really boring.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd be an illustrator. So this is like we're talking about 1984 now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the grim north, post-punk. Goth. It's actually the time of goth. Goth stuff was just starting to come in.
Right. And were you a goth, or were you?
No. I bought into it a little bit later on. We can go back to that. but
I'll have to get some photos to put up.
You're just gonna. This is great, and that was the end of Tim's career. So I decided to be an illustrator. I could focus on that. I thought that's good because I've always been really into music as well. Probably as much as definitely 50-50 with art and animation.
Yep.
And I was already looking at album cover design stuff
Okay.
back then, and I saw that as maybe that was the type of thing that I could. I was actually feeling a little bit enthusiastic, a little bit more enthusiastic. I thought, yeah, that's good actually. Maybe I could get a job doing something like that, working
Yeah.
on design album covers. But the
Brilliant.
trouble was, back then. It was really I was into like doing I was really into airbrushing, and I was doing all these dragons and landscapes and spaceships. And back then in
So
1984,
like meatloaf cover or something.
oh well, no, this is part of my notes. No, wait, bring that back in the next hold that. So I was doing all this stuff, and at college I was just getting totally ignored. I mean, it's just like totally don't do that, I mean, and my this really great friend I had called Kim. I'd spent ages, and one day she brought in she brought in a tampon, kind of stapled to a bit of wood, and they all went nuts for it. It's like it was such a statement, and I spent like a month airbrushing, snakes and dragons and gladiators.
I love that.
And I was just like, so I went, but then there was another girl on the course, and she came in one day with a perfect copy, I've got to admit, of Bat Out of Hell, the cover. And they loved that.
Yeah.
So I really felt at that point I couldn't win. And I wasn't getting, I was just kind of not fitting in with the whole art school thing. But I was having a great time. I was enjoying myself, it was great being away from home for the first time and stuff. And really close to the end of the course, a guy called Pete Mitchell, his name was, and he was a visiting photography lecturer. I didn't really have much to do with him, but he came and said, I know you haven't got in anywhere. I've just been to this this college, documentary photography film college in South Wales, and they've got an animation unit there, a film unit there, with an animation unit within it, and they're going to have to close it if they don't get people on the course.
Wow,
It might be worth you going and have a look if you want to stay, if you want to keep going. And I thought, well, another couple of years, on a grant.
Oh, I love
why not?
this.
So I went down. So I popped down. So I popped my portfolio on my back and went down to meet them down in Newport in South Wales, which has got to be. I don't know if you have been there. It's got to be the roughest place.
I've not been there, but I do have a friend who went to art college there. So
in the 80s,
in the early noughties.
I don't know how it is.
And he said it was rough.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. It was the first time I'd really seen a properly depressed town, because it was like a failed coal industry, failed docks. It was all unemployment and quite me. But I went down there and I got on really well with them, and they accepted me because they needed students, fantastic. I guess. So that was me. I went off on this. It was called a film science course. There's a little unit within it just for 6 people to specialise in animation.
Wow! So a really small group of you, which
really
is
small
really
group of us, yeah. And they had their own building, this film school outside of the thing, which was fantastic. It was great. I mean, it was really run down and stuff, but the atmosphere was really nice. There's probably about 30 students in total over 2 years on that course.
Yeah.
And like almost from day one, they started teaching us basic animation, and I was just like, this is brilliant. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah.
And it was like, alas, the bulb. I'd found where
the thing.
The thing in art that I wanted to do.
The spark, that fire in you.
Yeah.
You're like,
and that was it. And then I was obsessed. And that opened up, because animation's such a broad sort of discipline, and you have to know about so much different stuff.
Yeah.
You have to know everything. It basically feeds into, if you're making things move and you've got to create things from nothing, you've got to be taking interest in everything, really.
Yes, definitely.
And that's what happened. Then I became interested in all art and classic arts and at last I was on this course where I was like top of the class.
Fantastic.
and it was just great. It was so good. And
was it the magic about it that you liked?
Yeah,
is that what it was? Like you see the pictures in static, and then you see them put together, and you're like, wow, that's magic.
Or I think really more than that. Going from nothing, the blank.
Yeah.
Blank. It was all paper back then, obviously. And going from nothing to creating life. Yeah. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's
you
like
don't get
God
that.
or something.
You don't get that. No, it really is like your God.
Yeah.
I wrote a little book and I did put that in there. You are creating something from nothing.
Creating life, yeah.
Yeah, and it was great, but also I could feed into it a lot of my ideas, and I'd also at some point back there when I was on my foundation course, and I don't know how this happened. I'd got interested in special effects for films, mostly because a book had come out, a big coffee table book from Industrial Light and Magic, which is a beautiful book. It's full of all the kind of special effects work in films pre-computers.
Okay.
So it's lots of model making, so it's all Star Wars
so much
and
fun,
all this Spielberg
that
and
stuff.
and just like and it's just so and I was fascinated. I love this book and I was fascinated. So I had a kind of heavy interest in special effects and kind of wanted to get into that.
Yeah.
And animation fed into that a lot because obviously back then they had a rostrum camera, huge rostrum camera to shoot things on, and I got really into using that and playing with mats and things and very abstract sort of thing. I'm jumping around now, but there were so many nice experiences when I was on that course. We had great visiting lecturers. A guy called Robert Breer came in, who's massively influential on me. Who was I don't know if you know, check out his work. It's very abstract.
I don't, but yeah,
it's just so good.
Look it up.
Yeah, and he's it's very abstract.
Okay.
I want to say naive. I don't think it's naive. You look at it and tell me what it is.
Is it like drawn 2D or is
it's almost it's drawn 2D. It's almost like done on the fly. He animates on little postcards. Postcards like that size.
Right.
And it just like flick books sort of things.
Okay.
But he was well respected at that time. He did, he's a guy in all the film festivals and stuff.
Right.
And he came in and he was such a nice guy and very humble, and but people like him opened up that thing that there was a side to animation that wasn't Disney, that wasn't just cartoons and things.
Yes, it's art. There's an art.
Yeah, it was art, and it was and it's very adult, and I was starting to tune into that. We also had Joanna Quinn, who's still down there. She was just making her first film. Did you know her work?
I don't. But
okay.
I will,
well, Joanna Quinn. If you look
I
up,
might do. I'm not great with names. So.
Well, no, me neither. That's good because I thought you'd be. And I'd be going, oh yeah, I love that person. Googling on my phone. Joanna's terrific. She just finished, I think, at the National Film School, and I don't know why she was in South Wales, but she's still there now, I think, and very, very much involved in the sort of South Wales animation movement. And she made a film called Girls' Night Out at that time, which that might be why she was there. I think she came to the college to use the rostrum camera to shoot that film.
Oh wow!
And she's more on the other side of. She's not a Disney animator, but she's a fantastic draftswoman. Just great drawings, and it's very figurative stuff. So there was just all these people passing through who were, because it was such a small thing. You spent a lot of time with them, and even the head of the course, a guy called Henry Lutman, he'd made one of the first computer animated films at the time, which was really just like a pixel. It actually looks like Minecraft if you see that. It looks like that. It's just a pixelated bee, I think, going around a flower.
Okay.
But it was right. But that was before there were any computer programs. You had to program the computer to do all that stuff. So
right.
He was when I finished there, he went on to set up one of the first big computer animation departments in London for one of the big companies, Moving Picture Company.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff going on at that time, which was.
Sounds really exciting.
Just age-wise, I just hit it at a really good time. I sort of was on the cusp of computer stuff, and I'd go on to see everything develop and become how it is now. What was the question?
So then,
that's education covered.
Yeah, education. Then you were like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, well, no, I'll tell you what happened. No, I'll tell you exactly what happened. So that was 2 years in Wales. And although I was really enjoying it, I didn't really have too much of a clue what I was going to do. So, but I did realise that I would have to get a job after this. That's my
that was the
days
end.
That was the end of.
That was your cut-off.
Although I'd worked really hard at college, that was the cut-off. Yeah, it's like things like that. But also, my partner at the time fell pregnant. Okay. So it became a little bit more serious, and I don't remember thinking about it as a reason before, but looking back, that's definitely what drove me. Yeah. And I was like, quite early on in my second year, like 6 months probably before I finished, I was quite concentrating on getting work.
Yeah.
And the options back then were to go into Cardiff, where there was company called Serial who made Super Ted and things
Oh,
like
wow,
that, kind
okay.
of kids animation, you know, and a lot that college fed that studio
Okay.
pretty much. You know, a lot of people that go, and I went down there and I saw the head there, guy called Dave Edwards, and showed him stuff. And he said, "Nah, you got, yeah, it's not
Too.
cartoony
What did he
enough.
say?
It's,
Too
I
not
can't really,
cartoony enough?
well,
Or...
I can't remember what he said, but he said you've got to go and watch. He said you've got to go and watch. You've got to go and study Disney more, and
Right.
that came into it.
And how did that make you feel? Were you like,
I think
angry?
at the time, yeah, I think I was kind of. I can't remember actually. I can imagine I would have been kind of like a bit knocked back because I thought I thought it was probably a sure in because a lot of people from that course went on to that. And,
Yeah.
I
And you were like you were doing really well as well.
Yeah, and I was doing really well, and I already knew people working there from the previous year and stuff, and I'd been in there and done work experience and stuff,
Right.
and so it's like, okay. So what I started doing then was going up to London quite often, every couple of weeks, and
Okay.
you got to remember, no internet, no mobile phones.
Yeah.
There's only a landline,
Yeah.
or a letter.
Yeah.
And I would and just doorstepping studios
Yeah.
in London. I'd go every couple of weeks,
Yeah.
go around the studios. I'd ring up first to get an appointment. I didn't knock on doors, but I'd go and see them, and they were great. They were all, I think, without fail, they were all great, super encouraging. They knew it was,
It was tough.
They didn't know about the baby and stuff, but they knew it was hard to get a job, and they knew to encourage people, and so they'd all take you in, and you have a cup of tea and chat. And I got to know, without working for them, I got to know quite a lot of them, quite well, like Bob Godfrey's studio and the people who worked there, and I went to see someone I'd never met before, and he said, "Oh, you should go and see this lady called Jill Brooks, who's got an animation studio." And it was all in Soho, so you just walk very quickly from one studio to another. It's like a couple of blocks. Oh, he probably. I think he rang ahead and said, "Hey, Jill, there's this young animator. You know about something. I'll just send him over now. I'll pop around from Portfolio again. You go, look at me dragons." And and they were working on The Wall at the time, the Pink Floyd film.
Oh, wow.
Stuff to do the tour or something like that. I don't know. They were involved with Joel Scarf a lot, but it was a tiny studio. And she said, "Oh yeah, there's a studio opening up in Camden Town. Disney are opening a studio to make a film. No one knows much about it, but I've got a number." And he gave me a number, and I rang it up that day, and I got to speak to a guy called Chris Knott, who was my contact, but he was basically building the team to do all the special effects on Roger Rabbit. I went and saw him and got a job. So
Fantastic.
it's like, yeah.
Just within a day.
Within a day, I was working for Disney.
Chances.
After being told I should go and study Disney, I was working for them.
You got told, yeah.
So that was a good.
Did you call up that guy afterwards and you're like, actually, I'm working for Disney?
Yeah, I still do. Every Christmas I give him a call.
Yeah, good idea.
So that was Roger Rabbit, and
can
I was
I just
on
ask
that.
in terms of confidence, what just going back slightly, in terms of you going and doing these things and pushing yourself to go to these animation studios and chat to people, how did you find the confidence to do that? Or did you have that quite naturally? Or was it just the impetus of like, oh, I need to get a job because I've got a baby on the way?
Yeah, no, I think like most things, it was pretty tough to ring up the first few.
Yeah.
But then I was ringing up so many, I got used to it. I was just, I had my thing down, and
you had your spiel.
And you just get used to it. But you're always like ringing up and thinking, but I don't know if that even exists anymore.
Calling people up and going.
Yeah, just cold calling, and you get through to the receptionist, and
they don't I don't think people like you calling now. I think they like to email and then you call after.
Or they'll have a online application thing on their website, which is very informal.
That they can ignore.
And it'll have stuff like you've got to have a degree in something.
Yeah, this. Don't bother if you haven't.
Yeah, it's like
it's crazy.
Yeah. So I appreciate it was different times. And the guy, the guy who hired me, Chris Knott, who's a long-time Dick Williams. A lot of the people heading it were, because Dick Williams was sort of head of animation within that thing. A lot of the people at the top positions were from his studio. He paired me up with an animator. So you work as an assistant to someone, like an apprenticeship, really. To start with. And this guy, Les Pace, was a really gentle older guy. He was an older guy, and he was very happy for me to take as much of the work as I wanted. So instead of being his assistant, really, we just showed out the scenes, and I'd animate, and he'd animate, so I just learned a lot. I think it ran for like 9 months, a year or something, doing that.
Yeah.
And that's where you sort of become professional, I suppose, without sounding like an arse. But there's things like it's not just talent; it's about speed. A lot of it's about working fast, which you don't do as a student.
Definitely.
You have to get your speed up and your accuracy and all the things like just looking ahead and problem solving, seeing problems that will happen in the future, on the job in the future and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was great, And again, I don't know, I've been thinking about this, chatting with you a bit, and that was another thing that I realised is very different these days, because back then when they made a film, they would often set up a big studio with 100 people in it and make that film, because there's a lot of that going on in the late 80s, early 90s in London. People would ping pong around these films, basically. There'd be teams, go around. So Amblin came and set up a studio and made a load of films. I can't remember what they're called. Fievel Goes West, was that one? Balto. All these kind of.
I love that. An American Tail.
Yeah, American Tail. Yeah, that one.
I love those movies.
So they were making all that stuff, And there was smaller stuff like called FR07. And then Disney came up and did a movie called DuckTales, and that provided a lot of really. Okay.
I was growing up with these things. So,
no, don't be like that.
There's a nostalgia there.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I'm like not a big Disney fan, but I'll be like, but however, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, for example, which is rubbish. I'll go like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, brilliant, isn't it? Because that's the one that I went to the cinema with my parents.
Exactly,
to see. So to me, it's like that is a good film, isn't it? Or all the ones previous to that, Jungle Book, and that's it. Yeah, those are good because those are the ones I got dragged to as a kid and loved. So about that. So yeah, that's what I was getting at about the films and being set up in one studio is that they gave people back then a really good apprenticeship, because you get hired and you'd go in for a year and you get your chops and you come
out. And that doesn't exist at all anymore, does it? Is that
I don't think it does. I don't think it does. Haven't seen anything like that going in London, because shortly after that they started making films by breaking it up into units and sending it to different places. You get smaller units, so they would have these smaller studios would have less opportunity to hire unskilled people or people straight out of college. I remember that Space Jam was the first one. I remember that happening with that was. I mean, when you look at a Marvel film or a big effects film, which are essentially animated films now, you look at the credits on the end, there's like 20 to 30 to 50 different studios involved in, because they just divide all the work up and send it around the world to different places, whereas that would all be done under one. I presume if Disney make a animated film, they'd probably still do it in a big studio, but I honestly don't know. But that's how most people I knew back then got into the business. You'd get in there, you'd also make your contacts on those films and stuff.
And how do you think someone would do that now if they wanted to get into?
I don't know. I guess
no idea.
I have no idea. I guess an equivalent thing is maybe the bigger studios now, because this whole visual effects, post-production, animation, they're all the same sort of studios doing that these days, whereas they kind of were separate things. And the bigger companies do hire interns now, which is it's a similar thing, I guess. Well, yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It's like it's a moot point, isn't it? It's like I don't know if there's is it a good thing, is it a bad thing, or just paid expenses? Sometimes it sounds like cheap labour, and sometimes and some of them I think maybe do it with the best intentions to train people up who then stay in the company, and go, obviously go on to better wages and get treated fairly. I can't think of any other way where you get a long stint, which is what you need, a long stint on something. Otherwise, you're kind of pinging around as a freelancer from small studio to small studio, doing jobs which, again, go back to budgets, are on short schedules. And sometimes you just get hired for 2 days or something. I don't know, if you're out of college and gone to something like that, there's no way you're going to be up to speed or it's tough.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. And that is me, bell of cynicism, because you've got people listening to this and wanting the magic answer, which is what I always wanted. When I was at college, I always wanted someone like me to speak to me and tell me, and because no one could ever answer that question. How do I get a job? How do I get into the industry? I don't know.
I think from what I've spoken to in kind of spoken to other artists, it seems a bit like you kind of have to set your sights on somewhere that you'd like to work and sort of figure out a way to approach them in maybe a clever way, I don't know, or a kind of more inventive way than everyone else does.
Yeah, I've heard a few things like that. People just sending reels that are packaged differently and things. Or whatever,
things like that.
Which is kind of tough because it's hard because a lot of animators are quite introverted and it doesn't come naturally to behave like that.
Absolutely, people are all kind of hidden away.
A lot of us are in it because a lot of us like it because we can just hide away and do it, or else we'd be actors. It's the other thing. We're not
using a character to do your acting.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I'd love to discuss it and help people with that, but I don't know how you do this. I still think a good start is to get to meet the people personally. So the approach is maybe to just get in touch with studios you like, and can I come down and chat with you? Can I have a look around your studio?
Absolutely.
And
go to events. You could go to. There's lots of
going to events. Yeah, I used to hit. Yeah, those are great. I was so into that when I moved to London on that thing. I was part of all the animation clubs, and they were great. Yeah, they were really good. If they still exist, those are fantastic. I mean, you get you'd be in really nice embassies. Usually, the Canadian embassy would throw the Canadian film board, film show, and for me it was Canada's like I could get animation. But you get drink, and you get fed. So it's like bingo. Yeah, and they were nice events. I guess the thing with those is I don't think I ever saw them as sort of work opportunities, because most of the people attending those were kind of more like individual filmmakers or people into that sort of thing. Okay. But that was great as well to meet those people and stuff. And
there's conferences and stuff, aren't there? There's those sort of.
It's so long since I've done those sort of things, but I would go to all the film festivals back then, which was the main ones in Cambridge, and then it was in Bristol, and it was in Cardiff, and those were good to go.
Yeah.
But even so, as animators and as a young animator, I think when I went on, I just kind of probably wouldn't approach that many people unless I was totally, they were so like important to me that I just couldn't help myself. And gush over them,
Did you ever do that? Then you approached people
I did.
That you really, really.
Yeah, I did.
Did it work out well?
No, well, yeah, it worked. It worked out satisfactory. It was like this was back in Bristol in probably about 1989, and there was John Lasseter was there who set up Pixar Animation, basically. He was the main guy at Pixar Animation.
Yeah.
Back then they and when I was at college, they'd released their first. It all sinks in really nicely. They'd released their first animated film, Luxo Junior, the standard lamp which jumps around, which was a major part of animation because it was the first time you'd seen in computer animation that there's actually character in something. So it's like, it's computer, and I immediately was like, it's computer animation, it's pretty good. So I started following that. By the time he came to Bristol to do a talk, he was on his third short film, which was great. Toy Story was a long way away, but he was on that. So I made a beeline for him and had a good chat with him. And
great!
And he was lovely, and and it really fired me up for keeping an eye on the computer side of things, I suppose. And I can be a fanboy if I need to be. No shame, no shame here, Lucy, as you know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's great to meet your heroes or people that are doing.
Well, it just happened so much, at that time, it happened so much to me. There's like the guys who were head of, like, say, Ken Ralston, who was the main special effects guy from ILM, was there in the Disney studio sometimes, and you weren't really supposed to. You weren't really on a level to be able to talk to them, but you did.
But I think
you'd probably hang around in the kitchen.
Yeah,
waiting for them to come in.
Creative people and animators and illustrators, I just think are really lovely and approachable from my experience of talking to people. They're just there's something about creative expression and doing that kind of, I think, is very freeing and allows you to. It just kind of makes, I think it makes people kinder and happier.
Well, I mean, I think so. I would sort of compare it to the music business. Is an even more kind of, the contrast is even bigger there, because I think that it's surprising how many, you know, and actors as well. Actually, the thing about animation actors that I've worked with, it's surprising how many of these people generally they're really, really nice people.
Yeah.
It's all the people around them,
yeah,
and control who are not nice.
yeah,
Not all of them not nice, but a fair amount of them are quite,
yeah, yeah.
they won't be unpleasant, but they're just like they're not very interesting, but some of them
That's
are unpleasant. But generally the people who are up there are really great. Yeah,
the artists.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
So when you finished that job with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, what happened then? Did you go freelance, or did you just
Yeah. Okay. I had to. Then it was kind of like it wasn't like the bottom of falling out my world or something. But again, I was in a situation where I probably thought I was going to coast it from then on because I'd made it, which I soon which I soon realised I hadn't.
Yeah, that's it. You think you've got there, then you're like,
no,
still got to climb.
And it's like I don't even have to do anything. The phone's going to go any minute, and it's going to be the next big job and the next feature. And I went back to doing what I'd done before, really, getting in contact with those studios, and so I went to see this company called Felix Films. And met the boss of that, a guy called Mike Smith, and it was a very small, quite let's say studenty setup. It wasn't a very flash studio, but it had a lot of character. And he was great. He was totally into what I was doing and took me on, but only for freelancing, only a job at a time, sort of thing. But a job was coming up, put me on it, and I started working there. And I worked there for about a year, I think, after that, on and off. And it was a kind of a situation back then where the studios, you'd be hired by the job, project to project, and you get paid, by the week, sort of thing. Budgets and schedules were probably a little bit longer back there. So a job came along, you'd be getting probably 4 weeks' work minimum. Sometimes they go on for 3 months, But what happened between those jobs is you were kind of they're almost that Felix was almost like a little club. You'd still hang around between the jobs and just hang out and you'd just be around and maybe hang out with your mates, and they had a bit of stuff going on, so you just help them on that a little bit or do that, and it was extremely social. I mean, it's really good fun. There's a lot of the sort of the social side of it was excellent. It's really so there was, well, I mean, really, it was like completely in contrast to the Disney job before, where they got to the point of me getting in at 7 a.m. and then not being able to go out till 8 p.m. and getting your food provided, and I didn't mind. Honestly, I loved it. I loved being there. It didn't bother me at all. But looking back, I think I was. But
you were young,
fine.
I think.
Oh no, I was young. Hard. It was my first job, and
that's
I was like,
hard, long.
But to go to no, I know I loved it. I had no problem with it at all. And then going to a studio where they were like, there was just you'd show up. I'd always show up early actually, because I just like being there. but then you're going. I wouldn't be the first one there because the boss would sleep there on the couch because he'd been in the pub over the road all night. Eventually with everyone else, and quite often we just end up, again going out all afternoon, and sometimes we just come back and start work at like 5 p.m. and work till midnight, and it's just totally, But we made some great stuff, cool. And we made stuff. We made stuff for David Byrne from Talking Heads video while we were there.
So were you using computers then, or?
No, computers came in. No,
later.
Computers came. So there's that period working for that first little company, and probably like a good 10 companies over a period of about 2 years, and it was very up and down very quickly. Sometimes there'd be a couple of months without a job, without any money coming in. You'd still be hanging out and stuff, but there'd be no. So it wasn't all super great success. And then I got a job in I think 1989 for a company called Clapto, who are kind of an older, more established commercial company who did basically, did a lot of breakfast cereal commercials, Rice Krispie Kids, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
most of the studios back then just did commercials, and a lot of back then before all the, I think it's been banned, hasn't it? All that sort of advertising, but a lot of it back then
for
was
kids.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Targeting. I don't think you get breakfast cereal commercials anymore.
Yeah, maybe
or,
not.
Or like
yogurt
commercials and sweets and stuff. Loads of stuff loads of
anything
stuff
with
that.
sugar in it, basically.
All those sugary things. I animated all of those. But it was there. But it was there where the first computers turned up. They were a very good company as far as staying ahead with technology. They had their own rostrum camera, which was quite unusual for a company, because they're very expensive things to own.
Yeah. So
I got to, again, work with that, which I used to really enjoy. Yeah. And they got in Macs very early on. I think 94, 95. With Photoshop on, and I started to tinker with Photoshop about 95. I was dating a girl who was a film journalist, and she used to get free tickets to film previews. So we'd spend like 3 or 4 nights a week going to little viewing theatres and seeing films which weren't released yet, which was that was great.
That's pretty cool.
And one of those films was Toy Story, and it didn't actually come.
I was going to say it's about around that time,
and it didn't actually get released until about, I think, maybe a good 4 or 6 months after I'd seen it. And
did it blow your mind?
And I'd seen it. It blew my mind. I was just like going around to people. It's all going to change. It's all going. This is the future. It's absolutely. It's brilliant. You got to see it. It's so good. You just this computer. So I was totally. That was a really good point in animation and sort of for me to be able to use computers.
It's the storytelling as well, though. It's
all the
Pixar. It's just really,
afterwards
really
you realise it's totally about the script. Yeah. I mean,
the computer animation is lovely, but and it's a different way of telling. Story, but
I think even at the time, I realized, I worked out straight away that actually that was what impressed me. They'd because their scripts had been terrible. They were just they were written for children, basically. Well, great for your child or a parent, but Toy Story was written on much more. It was to appeal to a family, actually, not to adults. And that's what impresses me about film scripts more than anything is when people can write something that works on an adult and a child's level,
definitely.
That's very clever writing, I think.
It is,
and they totally nailed that. So anyway,
So after that, did you just go back to freelancing?
Yeah, I was back to freelancing for the small studio. I didn't get a job straight. I did get a job straight away, but they didn't come thick and fast. So a friend who I'd worked with in that studio was in another studio, and he just recommended me to a place, and I went and worked on more commercials. Cool. But the first job that I did when that I got after that was with a director called Tom Gravestock, who was quite a maverick director at the time in London, quite angsty. and I went in on this job they were making, which was a big commercial. It's for NatWest Bank. And I probably had back then would have got 2 months work on it, maybe, or something like that, But it was already in pro. And man, when I walked into that studio, they worked so much harder and so much faster than what I'd been doing for the previous 9 or 10 years that it was another massive. No. I went for the first week every day thinking I'm just going to get fired today. Today's the day I get fired. Today's the day I get fired.
Horrible feeling. That.
Totally.
That's the worst feeling.
Yeah. And it was they were so, and the people, and they. I'm not saying they weren't nice, but they were full on, shouty people, and it was very manic. It was a very manic atmosphere. But they were good. But once, all the time. But after a week, we, and they're good friends to this day. Those people.
That's good. So you kind
and it was great.
Settled in.
It was just a baptism by fire. I that job just got me so super sort of up to speed again. And then I pinged around a few more studios. By that time working as an animator, but I still had a sort of reputation for being an animator who was probably useful doing anything but just straight Disney type animation. So anything kind of weird, anything rotating.
Well, that's what you want to be known as, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything,
I was really
that weird guy in.
Yeah, exactly.
The weird guy Tim. Do you remember?
Or like that's gonna take someone. Someone's gonna have to work all night on that. That's really boring. Tim will do that. What is it? Oh, it's like a rain cycle, but a whole rainforest. Oh yeah, he'll do that. Yeah. So you know, and a lot of abstract animation, which I love doing. I mean, one of my favorite animators is Oscar Fischinger. He made very abstract animations, but
Okay, great.
but organized like in patterns. They're fantastic. So
I mean, I know Len Lai. I think.
yeah, well,
if he was
that's more furious, all the sticking wings to film and stuff.
Yeah.
I would say
yeah,
less
I have to
watchable.
do that. Less watchable. Okay.
Less watchable,
That's
but it's still cool.
I'll
Yeah.
look him up.
But
Fantastic.
yeah, they'll all be in the same book, those guys.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of just known for doing the weird stuff really, which was I was happy doing. Yes, I went shortly after that. Baptism by Fire. I got involved with Passion Pictures and went in there. Went there working as an animator on commercials mostly, and just became they were a sort of place where you would hang out between jobs and help other people on jobs. So I was probably there for about 6 or 8 years, I think, and a couple of years into that, they started giving me stuff to direct.
Fantastic.
And that's when I sort of did, that's when I worked as a full-on director with teams and stuff, which is okay. Yeah, but it wasn't. I worked out shortly after that wasn't my ideal position in in an animation studio. My ideal position is working which is a position that doesn't exist, is working as a director's assistant. Which I always loved doing. I'd work, with
not having the full responsibility.
Well, I mean, I think not having to deal with so much of the bureaucracy and stuff, and being more just involved on the creative side. So I'd often work as second to the director, but it wasn't a defined position. It was just because we were friends and they get me on their jobs. But I do a lot of problem solving with the director on the actual job. But they would be these people I'm talking about who
cool.
They are just better. They're better than you. So you just be happy with that you can work on. You can work on this, because those would be great projects. So that would be stuff like the Gorilla stuff and the Love, Death and Robots stuff. So that's my ideal position if I had to choose one.
Oh, fantastic.
So
can I ask you finally about how, when you have you ever found it difficult to be creative, or is it something that you have just, because it doesn't really sound like you have from what you've spoken about.
No, I think so.
It sounds like you've always had quite a lot of faith in yourself in a way. Is that true?
Not entirely. No, I think what happens is you become comfortable with your own limits and accept that. I have quite a hard time with that, really. Even after the period we've been talking about, more this century, getting to work with really high-end directors and animators, and just realizing that you just have to come to accept that they are really good, and you're that little bit below them, and just accept it, or else you're just gonna eat yourself up if you don't do that. It's gonna kill you. So you become happy with what you are and what you can do, and
your limits and your capabilities.
And work within your limits, and be grateful for what you got, I suppose is the say. But I have but being creative as well. I often a lot of fear of the blank page, and often a lot of lethargy. Just like I've got a week, maybe I've got a month without any work, while I'm looking for work and stuff, and I'm like, well, I should really be practicing and getting better at something. It's like, but daytime TV, wins.
And so do you find that you don't...
Cut that bit out. Cut that bit out.
No, I'm not cutting that bit out. This is good stuff.
But I have ways. I have ways of sparking.
What are your
creativity.
Ways? Tell me.
Well, say for example, I wouldn't just sit down and start animating something at that time, but I would sit down and maybe decide to do an illustration or something. And I'll quite often, I have a huge collection of, on my computer of files and pictures and reference, thousands of pictures of stuff that I like. And I'll often just pick one of those at random and use that to inspire what I'm going to do. So it could just be it could be a red elephant sitting on top of the post office tower. And I'll just okay, I'm going to do an animal on top of a tower and start doing something. And that's just like bang.
You just need one thing, and
you do one thing. it's a lot like
taking
those
action as well. I think you're kind of not thinking, not overthinking it, just going and just doing it kind of thing.
And what happens is often when you start, you just, as soon as you pick the pen up, then all right, I'm going to do, I'm going to do lizard on top of the pyramid. You go, that's a stupid idea. I've got a much better idea. And you do something completely different.
That's it.
But you're into it.
Just takes one action, doesn't it, to kind of start you off.
It's a lot like push. It's a lot like there's a lot of things, a lot of forums and online clubs, aren't there, for illustrators and animators, where it's like a drawing a day, and I'll give you a theme. And
there's like
so it's basically
and things,
so it's just a self-made one of those, really. But I do that. Yeah. Same for music. I'll just, if I'm trying to write something and I don't know where to go, I'll just hit the shuffle button and go, all right, I'm going to write something like that. I'm going to change it, and I'm going to change it enough that it's not recognizable. So.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it. You're getting inspired. You need something to spark you off, and then it becomes.
And once you're into it, and I think everyone needs that. I mean, even when you're working commercially, pre-production and the bit before you actually start is so important, and it's kind of missing now on a lot of jobs. But the more time you can spend before you actually start making the film, just researching and looking at reference and brainstorming
and playing,
experiment, doing things that you throw away, which the places won't budget for that anymore, that's for sure.
No.
But
it's like that's the most important bit. That's where you get something amazing and new and interesting.
Yeah. And it all comes out in the final film,
Exactly. So just briefly, you're really into your band and your music at the moment. So do you want to tell people where they can find that?
Oh, well, the band is Shaw's. That's very kind of. The band is called Shaw's Trailer Park, and it's your thing. You love it. Yeah.
It's an artistic pursuit, so it's
so many people. So many animation people have music going on at the same time. I mean, I know
that's interesting.
So many of my animator friends, we never talk about animation. We talk about music all the time. I would say all of them actually.
It's really interesting actually. There's a crossover.
So it's Shaw's Trailer Park, and it's
Shaw's Trailer Park.
Check us out on Facebook. Our album is released today. Can you believe that? It is.
Congratulations!
We had a big launch party last night at the Albert down in town.
Fantastic! Look. Congrats!
There's
it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
So
where can people get that then?
If you go to our Facebook page, then there's loads of links to it. But you can get it at Resident if you're in Brighton and sell it, and HMV will sell it.
Great.
And, it's just gone on Spotify today. If you want to download it. Thanks for that.
No, of course. That's where your passion is at the moment, I think. So yeah.
Well, no, it's when the good jobs come in, it's good. I mean, I'm just literally this morning, just before you came, I just emailed back a guy who I'm going to start a job for pretty soon, and I'll get passionate about that. That'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's kind of it's lots of streams and lots of things going on. Those are your main two kind of things.
Yeah, it's taken the music's taken a lot of my time up and my money, but.
Do you think you'll ever do an animated music video for your band, or do you not think it?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit. The previous band I was in, I did kind of motion graphic-y type videos for. So I would think so, but it wouldn't be. I wouldn't think character based. Not like a Gorillaz thing, but definitely something a bit weird. Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, like random, abstract thing. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. Yeah, definitely.
Do it.
Better than looking at me,
Oh no.
Yes.
That's not true. But yeah, thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you so much, Lucy. That was really fun.
Wonderful insights, and take care. I really hope you enjoyed that episode of Becoming an Artist: Creative Secrets Revealed with the wonderful Tim. I hope you got some insights on how to become an animator. Do remember to go to becominganartist.co.uk to download the Becoming an Animator exact steps that I've created from this interview, and all of the other resources from all of the other interviews from this podcast. And also remember to subscribe. It really helps us if you do. So subscribe on any of the channels that you're listening to this or watching this on. And also keep creating.